Joining us now, Congressman representing Mississippi's 1st District, our good friend Trent Kelly. Thanks for coming on today, Congressman.
It's great to be on with you, Gerard.
All right, so you guys got a lot of stuff going on up there in Washington. Let's first start, if you will, Congressman, talking about what unfolded yesterday at the Supreme Court. Really extremely high-profile case. All eyes in the nation, perhaps even across the world, are focused on this case brought to the Supreme Court by the state of Mississippi regarding abortion. How did you think it went?
Being there, first of all, a huge amount of support from the pro-life community, and I thought that was really important. Lots of members. I watched some of the oral arguments, couldn't see them all because I was busy, but it seemed like they went really well. Of course, I've learned from past experience in the law business, oral arguments don't always define how the decision really looks. So I felt really
Sure.
good about where we were. I thought Mississippi's team, Lynn Fitch's team, presented a great case in a great way. I think we've got as good a chance to do something with Roe v. Wade now as we'll ever have or have had in the past. So I feel good about it, but cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, and I came away with the same view. But one thing that did surprise pleasantly was even a lot of the staunchly entrenched left-wing media is signaling, as you probably are aware, that it went better for the state of Mississippi in the pro-life argument and the right of states to regulate abortion, that it went better for them than it did the Jackson Women's Health Organization, the defendant, and as the federal government, who says they have an interest because of the 14th Amendment. Your thoughts about that? I mean, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CNN, all these, even The Economist, which is one of my kind of moderate readings, they're even saying it went well.
Yeah, and I think when you show a picture of a 15-week-old baby and you show that it has fully formed hands and face and their brain and they're feeling pain, it's hard for somebody to say that that's not a life. I mean,
Yeah.
and to do that, I just think you're starting on shaky ground when you're trying to say that is not a life. That is something other. That's a fetus. No, that is a baby. That is a life. That is a formed human being.
And I don't see how it cannot be effectively argued and frankly consensus reached that the standard of viability with the advances in medical science over the last 40 years has changed. I mean, that line has changed dramatically, and that's essentially at the heart of the case.
Well, I mean, to me, the Democrats are a party of deception. I mean, if you think about it, even in COVID, follow the science, follow the technology. And then when they don't like the answer, they don't follow the science. And it's the same thing. They don't want to follow the science unless it's beneficial to them. And they've got it. We've got to hold them accountable. If they want to follow the science, then let's follow the science. And the science says that is a human being, that is a baby, that it deserves to be born.
Yeah. And this is just another one of those areas, Congressman, in my view, where there's a stark contrast in states. Because if this thing, I think, prevails in favor of the states, such that states have total authority to regulate and determine abortion in their state, we are likely to end up with a number of states that totally prohibit abortion. And then another number of states that will still allow it. It's just, you can make that same contrast with respect to economic policy, voting rights, crime. It's just across the board how it just seems like the gap is widening between philosophies on both sides of the aisle here.
Well, and I think you see a huge difference in the parties, whether you're talking about voting, whether you're talking about crime, whether you're talking about right to life. The Democrats want to have one federal rule that implies their policies to everyone, no matter how unpopular they are. And Republicans want states and the people to be able to decide. And I'm in the House of Representatives. I think our job is to represent the people in our district, not to represent the people of New York City or California or wherever they come from.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So the other thing that's looming large right now, Congressman, is the funding of the government. Once again, we're faced with this continuing resolution nonsense. It looks like the House says they got a deal, right? But the Senate, the rules over there are different, of course. And apparently, there's a group of senators that aren't going to sign on to unanimous consent. They're signaling. Mike Lee, one of those, and basically saying we want to get rid of this goofy vaccine mandate, and that is a requirement for us to move forward. What do you think's going to happen there? You got any thoughts on that?
I think they will get to a deal as far as a CR. Of course, I'm not for these CRs. They're devastating, not only to our
Yeah,
military, but to everything else. Of course, it's kind of funny with the Democrats because basically they're passing Trump's budget on everything else, which is his
exactly,
last budget. Anytime we do a CR, so it's a lose for
exactly.
them. I think it's a lose for Republicans too. But I don't like CRs because they're so devastating to so many of our businesses and contractors. I mean, that means no new acquisitions. And with all this going on with China and Russia right now, we don't need to be holding our military hostage. They need to do their job and do their appropriation. But they've done no work. The whole year they've done no work, and they're getting here to 3 or 4 weeks left, and they're trying to cram everything together now. And we know what that does. It's 1,000-page bills that nobody has a chance to read that have all kind of bad stuff for America in them. So I think they'll get a CR through February, but I think we'll be going through the same process again in
Yeah,
February because
we'll
they
be
don't know how
back
to
at it.
work. They don't know how to govern.
So you got that. You got the NDAA authorizing spending to keep the military going. You got that on the horizon. You got the debt ceiling coming up. And you got this gigantic Build Back Broker bill, as I call it. All of that floating around. But here's the deal, Congressman. Does it not seem like that, as is typically the case, they expended all of their cycles, all of their energy, all of their political capital on trying to ram through this unpopular legislation instead of taking care of things they should be taking care of, like making sure we got money to pay the bills?
They do, and they're focused on and I mean you've got people in the House on the other side that are wanting Biden to do more through executive orders, and I mean you don't have to go any further than the vaccine mandate. This thing is
Right.
unconstitutional, it's illegal, but you got members of the squad wanting to cede that power to Biden no matter what. And listen, these vaccine mandates, and thankfully Louisiana, my friend Jeff Landry over there, the Attorney General there, we've got some wins in this, and we're fighting this every way we can, whether it's through lawsuits, trying to pass legislation. Of course, that's hard to do in the minority, but we're doing
Yeah.
everything we can with these vaccine mandates because that's all they just want this so that they can continue to control power and control elections.
And it looks like it's coming apart, though, with some of the wins that are occurring blocking these mandates in the courts, certainly from a healthcare worker perspective, and now federal contractors. We're sort of down to the one that is a no-brainer to block, which is requiring private sector employers to vaccinate all their employees. That ought to go easy, in my view. That's complete overreach.
And we already don't have enough people in the workforce, and they're trying to cut down the number. I mean, we don't have enough people to fill jobs now, and they're trying to cut that number even more.
Ridiculous. Well, before you go, what do you think about the midterms? It's less than a year now. You feeling pretty good about our chances of flipping the House and Senate?
I really am. I think we have to make sure that the American people, know that we have a plan to put the brakes on the Biden administration. I think we have to make sure that we're not fighting with ourselves, and that we understand that what we're trying to do is highlight how horrible the policy of the Democrats, who control all three chambers. I mean, the presidency, the House, the Senate, and just show how horribly they have failed in governing America.
But they don't admit it. That's what you can't. They think they're doing great. The president's still running around telling everybody how great everything is.
They are, but I don't think the people are buying, as we saw in Virginia
I
and
agree.
even New Jersey. We didn't win that race, but we sure pushed, and so I think that the mood out there, they can keep telling themselves that they're successful, but the people aren't buying it. They're smarter than the Democrats give them credit for.
It's unbelievable. They just seem to be kind of tone deaf to the polls. Also, we're hearing more staff attritions in the vice president's office. Nobody wants to work for her. Doesn't seem.
Well, I mean, you saw what a horrible candidate she was. I mean, she couldn't even last much longer than the Iowa caucuses, and
I
she
know.
was a horrible candidate, and she can't win again. So it's not surprising that she's unpopular.
That's unbelievable. Congressman, always a pleasure having you on the program, sir. Thanks so much, and we'll be tracking everything and talking to you soon.
All right, thanks a lot.
Congressman Trent Kelly, representing Mississippi's 1st District, has been our guest. We'll come back with